Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name's Campbell. This is Spiral Up, and we're back with another chat with Howdy, rules of the realm. We've been sort of going down, what is reality? Are there rules here? What are they? We've yet to sort of really sort of pinpoint any true rules, true laws that are, apply 100% of the time, but we're still going down there. But yeah, so we're going to continue our conversation today and basically see where it goes, right? So welcome, Howdy.
Hey, Campbell. I notice I'm doing this a lot more.
Ah.
It's like, isn't this what like 60-year-old professors do when they're sitting at the front of their lecture room and they're thinking?
Because you're thinking a lot more.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't, it's not like I have a long beard here, so I don't know why I'm doing that. But
maybe the universe is telling you need to grow a goatee.
I need to get my long Confucius beard here and start working with my I Ching.
Yeah. You see, you're so much more wise. That's what all you need to do. Just stop reading, stop thinking, just grow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's bizarre though. If you look a certain way, right, people will believe that's what you are. Exactly. I read that somewhere where, if you choose to dress a certain way, you will be treated completely differently by people that you meet compared to dressing some other way. And there's nothing different about you other than you're an external thing, that an external layer that you're placing on top of yourself that gets judgments from others. It's really interesting, actually, how easy that is to do.
Isn't it? I was just thinking the exact same thing, like, like you with all your knowledge, you don't sort of reach millions of people or anything at the moment. But someone, who gets out there and they've got the look and the voice and all this kind of stuff, but not necessarily the knowledge, right? They can get the audience quickly. So it's this whole thing, the external, perception, right? It's a layering that people put on, but that's perceived by us as a certain thing. It's like that, remember that show, Undercover Boss, I think it was, and they'd get like the CEOs of companies and put them in, same kind of thing. And, they'd be the same people, same, personality and that, but different clothes. And so it's interesting.
Yeah. So where would you like to go today, Campbell? Something about the the reality. You had something you wanted to start with?
On sort of, focusing inward, because clearly that's where reality seems to be made. It's definitely where it's lived, because we also we know now that everything is really inside of our brain, I guess you could call it. Like, we don't see outside, we see inside our mind, right? The picture's made inside our mind. All these things. So whatever we're seeing is actually inside us. It's not outside us, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah, I kind of thought of it more. I mean, I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's formed there and gets projected outward, sort of like, and I think that leads to that physics idea where things only exist when you are perceiving them. Yeah. So the room in front of me this way exists because my perception is projecting out. So it's there and it's not behind us. So I think people have a hard time figuring that out, but that's very similar if you think of a way a video game is structured. So if you're a character in a video game, the game itself is only generating the code and the information of what's in front of you, what's going on. The rest of it is just code. It's just possibility. It's not actually there. If the character turns, then the game is indicated it has to create a different piece of the code, a different part of where you are to, and then this other part goes away. It's not creating everything all the time. So that's the first interesting thing that kind of does have an explanation of the rules of the realm, that if nothing is perceiving in this reality, then it's not being generated. And then there'd be overlap, right? So if two people are in the same room looking at different directions, well, two different pieces of the room will, in a sense, be there, but the other pieces of the room won't. And as you start to expand it into nature, well, how much of nature is perceiving? How much of nature does nature exist, not exist? Because I think it's it's a conglomerate. There's a conglomerate of what's being generated, and then there's individual pieces of that also being generated by the consciousness that's viewing that particular area, if that makes sense. So it can get quite complex, but at the basic level, it still makes sense. If you're running a computer, you don't want to keep generating everything all the time. That's too much power. You want to generate only what you need to generate for, you might say, what the game needs at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about the simulation, that's how it seems to work. It's like, you know, if a tree falls in the forest, right, can anyone hear it? So, I mean, we've got a collective reality, right? You know, two people can stand in a room and see the same thing. So it's not like I'm not saying we create this, you know, random reality, but, you know, we get these, you know, like, you know, insane people, right? Who literally live a different reality, though it is internal. So, and then we were talking before the show about dreams and sort of how they come in it, because they kind of fit into that same realm, don't they? Or they do to me, you know, as far as visions and people who, you know, are seeing things, you know, it's kind of like a dream, right? And the thing about dreams is we sort of attach it to something really good, right? And I think that a lot of that is to do with, you know, dreams. You know, what are your dreams? As in, what do you want, right? So dreams, we think they're good, but a lot of people have bad dreams, you know, nightmares, right? A lot of people have bad dreams. A lot of people have what's it called when you get frozen in your dream and you can't move. And this is the thing. So I've sort of been thinking about dreams because, you know, it's a third of our lives. We don't really know a lot about the state of dreaming. You know, there's been research on the brain function when you dream, but as far as comparing dreams and the messages and what they mean, there's not a lot there. You know, because we don't know if they're good, right? Like are we even meant to dream, right? Is that maybe, you know, this is the thing, is that us being programmed for something? Is that why we can't remember them a lot of the times? Is that, you know, because I was kind of running off the concept of this, you know, the false white light, all these people that channel entities, and the entities are, you know, telling them that they're, I'm an angel or whatever, I'm white light, but they're not, you know, so that they're portraying this good thing, but using them. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you, this is the thing, right? We have all these perceptions of, you know, dreams are just dreams, you know, and especially, you know, that's what we get told with a kid. No, I just had a bad dream. Oh, don't worry. It's just a dream. You know, it's not real, but clearly they affect people.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that kids are taught early on to kind of ignore your dreams, when I think at the earliest ages as kids, we pay attention very closely to our dreams. We treat them as quite real. And it's the system, it's the people around us that begin to tell us not to. I think that's an interesting first thing, that it's the authority figures around us who are trying to tell us don't pay attention to them. I know a lot of native tribes, they review all of their dreams in the morning together as a group, or used to, of course, when they were still tribes, because they felt how important they were for understanding, not just for the person, but potentially everybody that was there. So they would actually review them as a group or small groups every morning. For me, at least, I've noticed there's I would call them three types of dreams that I tend to have. One are just dreams. They're just things that are going on in my mind. My mind is it's like not shutting off. It's just creating something. Okay. And it's just another experience. It's going on in a different state. I then have some dreams which are like messages, or there are something useful in there. There's like an information about something that's going to happen, or something to be aware of, or somebody you might be meeting. Like wait a minute, I saw you in a dream like 2 days ago, you know, something like that. So then there's those. Then there's this other chunk of dreams that, like you say, are quite manipulative. That's the best way I can use it. It's like something is going on in the dream that is attempting to manipulate our consciousness, manipulate our decision making, and take it not just so much in the dream, but take it back when we wake up, so that it follows us in our day-to-day life. I just had one of those this
Yeah.
morning as
Wow.
we were talking about this. I had one of these weird things that, yeah, there was an attempt to, it was an attempt to try to make me agree to something in the dream that I didn't want to agree to, but I know that's symbolic to something else. And I
Mhm.
kind of had to clean that off this morning before I started my day because it was really weird. And I've noticed two things about it. That is, there's often one of them, people will notice they'll often happen at between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. These kind of weird dreams. That's known as the witching hour. People think it's 12 o'clock. They think it's midnight to 1, and that's a trick. It's actually all of these esoteric texts always talk about between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's when weird stuff can happen. If you're often going to get a nightmare, that's the time. It's like for some reason, the veil is even really thinner and these beings can sneak in. The second thing about that I've noticed is that how many times, and you can share this for yourself, how many times somebody appears in your dream who is or was a family member, somebody close to you, somebody maybe that you were a friend with, you haven't seen for a while, or used to date 20 years ago, and now they're in your dream. And of course, because you are connected to them, there's more energy involved, there's more interaction than just a regular dream character. But you notice there's always something wrong with them. They're not really the way you would see them to be. And I started to notice this is probably these entities sneaking into the dreams, covering themselves with an image of someone that you will open yourself more easily to so that they can sneak in more. And then, yeah, present this kind of around the side almost attack at you, and you're kind of mesmerized by the person you're there, as opposed to just a generic figure where you would automatically have your guard up a bit more. Like, I don't know if you notice that when
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of times when you meet people in your dreams that you know really well, you're
Mm,
always kind of, eventually you're like, okay, something's wrong here. This is not good, actually.
mm. Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of, yeah, what started the thing is the same as what we see in real life, right? You know, we have all these, so-called gurus and leaders and things, and they get people to follow them, and because they think there's someone good, or that there's good values or whatever, or one of their friends has told them. But then there's nefarious, it's all for nefarious activities, right? It's a way to get through the back door. Or we just have these entities causing trauma so they can attach, right? Which is what a nightmare is, because it's kind of the same thing but in the dream state. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a reflection of of the waking state. It's like we're under attack there, but maybe we're closer to attack, or easier to attack, maybe. I don't know. There's just something about the dream state, and so many people don't even remember dreams at all. So what's going on there? And I can't help but think the witching hour, that word witch, is that the time where we get information and decide which way we're going to go for the day, or which way we're going to go in life. And that's the point that these entities try and come in, because they want us to do different stuff, right? And kind of like you said, you woke up feeling that like they were trying to make you do something that you didn't want to do. So I think that because there's a lot of talk about all these entities in the waking world at the moment, but not that much of in the sleeping world, is there?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people notice that quite a bit if you really start thinking about it, is how much presentation gets sent out to be, if you're dealing with reality or trying to understand reality or the matrix or whatever, your focus, it's your waking life. Like, this is when you're supposed to be doing all this work and checking things. And there's like a giant, it's like it just forgot, like you say, but 8 hours a day you're sleeping. So what's going on in the 8 hours of sleep? Where actually is consciousness to start with? Where actually is your awareness? Because there is an awareness when you dream. So what layer of reality is the consciousness in, and what's going on there? That seems to be ignored generally by anyone who's suggesting exploration of this realm. And why would you not also be trying to get answers in that part of it too? Because
Right.
the sense is, right, we're just going to a different layer of the matrix. We're going to a different layer of the dream. Maybe we are in the astral realm without even knowing it, or some other realm that's that's just finer. Obviously it's not as material, but it's very projectable. When we dream, whatever we think, it's automatic. It's like, there it is.
Mm.
And it's a great place to learn to control your thought if you can be lucid, but it's also a great place to get lost very, very quickly, because your thoughts are, it's just there, there's a projection, and boom, you're gone.
Mm,
And yeah, it tends to be, I think dreams either tend to get, too much focus. It's like you need to really focus on them and write everything down and go in detail. And the other side of it is just ignore them, just focus on your day-to-day life. And there should be a medium, something in the middle that
yeah.
that gives you enough work that you need to do and not overdo it.
Well, if they were looked at as just a different state, rather than this kind of dream, they're kind of this, it's just dream, it's just, you just kind of go to bed and then you wake up, right? And it's not really spoken about. Like I said, they've done all, there are dream researchers, that is what, that's all sleep researchers, I guess, but it's all brainwaves, as far as people, talking to people, like you said with the tribe, what happened in your dream, rah, 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 and then sort of monitoring different, all their dreams and seeing if anything actually, if it's got any relevance to their real life. We haven't got, as far as I know, any research like that. We'll probably get comments below, let us know if there is. Yeah. But that's the thing, it's kind of this, this realm. And, you can imagine, like you said, when we're kids, if instead of telling yourself false, if we were taught a bit about them, you can imagine that if you knew, then, would we all be lucid dreamers, right? And if we were, you can imagine that we'd be fairly powerful, right? Because there's a lot less rules in the dream world. So is that one of the reasons why it's ignored, right? And sort of dismissed and told, taught that it's just fantasy, right? It doesn't exist. It's just a dream.
I know when I was at the stage where I was working with dreams way more than I am now, when I was like taking time to really, try to stay lucid, try to stay clear as I fell asleep, trying to be as alert in the dream, writing them down in the morning to go through details later on. The flip side of that was I was much more aware in my day-to-day existence. I was catching more things that were going on, more birds that flew by. I would see the rabbit that ran in the forest more quickly than I did before. So one was an increased awareness, but more than that, there also seemed to be because that word dreams links to, we use it in two different ways. We use it as something that has an experience we have at night when we sleep, and it's also the word we use for, in a sense, something we want to create or manifest in the future. So how do those two concepts link together is bizarrely, we're trying to, here's a really interesting concept for all of us to think about, is the manifestation that we think we would like to do, because this is kind of everybody's, I like to change this, I'd like to be involved in this. It's like, and we're trying to do it in day-to-day consciousness, but maybe we're supposed to do it in our dreams. That in day-to-day consciousness, we're just playing it out. The manifestation phase is really supposed to take place at night. And perhaps a lot of this stuff that happens, it's a giant dream distraction, is to stop the manifestation creation process during that period. That's a really interesting concept that just came to me now.
It came to me at exact the same time. That's just because you think of it, there's no rules in the dream world. So literally you can, make your dreams come true, right? In the dream. So whatever you, so yeah, I mean, and I was thinking before, there's all this emphasis on analyzing dreams after people wake up, but what kind of rituals do we have before going to sleep, before the dream? So you can imagine if you got ready before the dream, and as that concept, if you're like, well, this is what I want to create, you go to sleep, you know how to lucid dream, so you then create what you want to create in the dream world, and then when you wake up, you live it out in the physical world. I mean, that's pretty cool. I think wow, that's a good concept.
It is, isn't it? Because because there has to be a reason the words are because English is a bizarre language.
Yeah.
English is a manufactured language, and it's a manufactured language partially for law and commerce. So that there's words that look like they mean one thing and when we talk, and there's words that mean something else in the legal context to confuse people if you don't know. So it's built for that, but it's also built for this very strange word interaction where one word means several very seemingly separate things, but some way they don't. All of those words that are all the I can't remember what they call, but when a word means different things, all of
Antonym,
those
isn't it?
different things
Hmm.
actually link. Synonyms, homonyms,
Antonym,
synonyms. I
homonym,
don't.
something
My
nim,
grammar's
something nim.
forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't remember. Yeah, but you know what? Everyone knows what I mean. But they're somehow linked. So in this case, that the word dreams is linking to these two different concepts has to mean they are somehow linked.
Yeah.
So someone is spending all their time trying to make their dreams come true in the material world only, it's going to almost guaranteed it's going to fail.
Yeah.
That somehow this realm of, and of course you can also do awake dreaming. That's what we would call, some would call like the shamanic journey state. It's a shamanic dream state where you are placing yourself in the dream world while you're still awake. So most of my dream work, you might say, that I was doing for a long time was in this state. I would put myself into the shamanic journey state while I was awake. Now the problem now, as I look back all this time, is I would always bring in spirit helpers or guides or whatever to help me through these journeys, and I never was checking for sure, what am I bringing into these experiences, because I'm asking them to come in. Am I sure what I'm bringing in is positive or not? Most of them turned out to be good, but I have to question again what's going on. So I think it's really valuable as well to see all the different places this stuff exists, and to really get a sense of what is actually in this state, what's going on, and what, yeah, if I'm bringing something in from the outside, again, with all this talk about, this, it needs to come from you. So if you bring something from outside, how can you verify that, at least if, because there are positive things out there, if you're going to bring something in, that it is positive, that it's not something that's trying to deceive you and lie to you? How do you know?
How do you
How do
know?
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this is a big one, isn't it? Because yeah, unless you try it, I mean, a lot of people will sort of say you can do this and you can, protect yourself and all this, but until you try, you don't really know. So I'd say probably don't dabble with that unless you, somehow know what you're doing. Because this is what's happening with a lot of people, and a lot of people are talking about it, that a lot of these people in, the spotlight, they sort of they're looking a little bit different, not a lot, the eyes might be different and stuff, and they start going sideways on what they're talking about. It's like this, this entity attachment maybe, but the same thing in the dream states. That's why they're stopping us. It seems, I mean, I like this concept. It seems like they're literally using that to stop us creating properly, right? Because that's the whole game, is that they can't create, they can't physically create, right? Which probably means they can't mentally create, really. They just can't imagine in the dream state, right? Which is where we're supposed to create, and then we live it out. So they stop us doing that, and they kind of get to control, the chaos. They just kind of sit there and they can kind of, point it in whichever direction they want. And it's the same thing in life, because we're not taught about dreams. Most dreams are chaotic, aren't they? Because you don't know what you're doing. And it's like, so when we come in and when we try and create and manifest, what do we get? Chaos, right? But to someone, a race of beings who can't create, but they need things created so they can control it, that kind of works in their favor, doesn't it?
Yeah, and back to what you're saying, how little most person remembers of their dreams, or even if you remember a dream, you maybe know you had 3 in the night, but you remember 1, right? There's 1 dream you kind of remember when you get up, but you had these other 2 that you're just maybe tiny fragments. So what was going on in the ones that are tiny fragments? Are those the ones you were being manipulated, played with, having certain projections played to be played out, that are manifesting in the world around us, not just in our reality, but the reality itself, right? That's where the manipulated projection comes in. And then a different dream happens that's doesn't really mean so much, is more personal, that you can, and that's the one you remember when you get up, and you put all this focus on the one that you had. I'm writing it down, but it's like, well, wait a minute, what about the ones I forget? because that so takes us to the idea that we had talked about before, right? Of the memory wipe of when you come back
Yeah,
after your last life and
exactly.
reincarnate again. And
Exactly.
here's the memory wipe, and we wipe away your last life, other than a tiny little bit of it that might creep in. And again, if something's being forgotten, if something's being seemingly pushed away, it's usually because that would be really important if you could see it, and something doesn't want us to.
Mm.
So it's bizarre. It's almost like the dreams we can't remember might be more important than the ones we do remember, because we seem to at least have some form of awareness and control. So the test would be how to gain more and more access of the ones that we're forgetting, to really see what is going on at night, what is the experiences that are going on, so we can maybe stay one step ahead of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. And what are the ones that we remember? Are they even, real? Like you said, if you're remembering one dream and it was, just a regular sort of dream, is that there to sort of,
Yeah.
to be the buffer, so you're not, to kind of hide the ones that they were manipulating? Because I was watching Universal
Mhm.
Soldier, and same, they're like, dead soldiers, then it gets into cloning. But this guy, he's a clone, but he's got all these memories, right? He thinks he's like, 30 years old, but he's only like 2 weeks old. So he's got, and because they've implanted them, but then the question becomes, are they really his memories? And they've implanted this new thing over the top, which is kind of, it's the exact same
Yeah.
thing. And we see this a lot in the waking world as well, but in the dream world, I mean, and if that is the place where we can create, because clearly it's a creative studio, right? I mean, imagine if we viewed it like that, as a creative studio. But if that's where we're creating, then that would be their first point to start manipulating, right? And then maybe these
It's all
attachments in the
interesting. What I was
physical
just
world
thinking
are
of when you're talking, I
thriving.
was there's certain dreams that pop up quite often. And like for me, you might have the one where you're going to university and you're late for the exam and you're running around. I mean, it's pretty common. Or people have ones where their teeth will be falling out, or
Yeah,
what. And
okay.
usually it's
Yeah,
presented as,
yeah.
oh, there's some stress in your life now, and this is just an old pattern that's in there. But what if it's this? What if that's like an implanted thing in our system, that if something big has happened in a dream beforehand, it's like this button is pushed by these beings as they kind of leave. They push the repeat button on something, so that dream comes up. So of course, because you have it so often and you're so used to it, and you wake up and you're, oh yeah, that stupid university dream again, and you all of a sudden you
Mhm.
start thinking, what am I worried about? Am I concerned about something? And you've totally forgot the possibility of, well, what was the dream that happened before? So that might also be a really good check. If a dream is coming up, if you have one of those dreams you've had again and again and again, maybe instead of it being a message for you, maybe it's a layer, it's a cover, it's something that's trying to hide something that just happened in the dream before that. That's also an interesting concept for people to consider.
Which would kind of go back to that, testing dreams in the real world. Maybe if you're getting dreams, don't focus on the dream. Maybe focus on the days around the dream, what was going on and what was happening. What results was there anything strange going on? Is it some kind of, cover up? But it's interesting you say, there are these common
Yeah.
dreams that people, across the world seem to have, right? Everyone
Mm.
talks about, the being naked, in public, and they might, they're all slightly different, but they got this sort of same base program, right? So it's literally like they're the, you
Yeah.
can imagine, like you said, a control panel full of little tapes or whatever, and they're like, do their programming, and then they're like, chunk, and that's the cover sort of program that runs,
Yeah.
that we all get, right? I mean, that's because I mean, because how do you explain stuff like that? I mean, this naked thing. I mean, how many people have actually gone out naked accidentally, right? And then been embarrassed by it? Because you would think for that to come back and be, to attach to you emotionally, you would have to have felt that emotion in the real world somehow. I would think. So where does that get generated from if it's common to a lot of people, when it's not common in reality, if you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
what
Almost
should
like it's a
be?
piece of code.
Yeah, yeah, it should be more. People should be having dreams about cars, right? Getting hit by a car, or things that actually happen.
Or at the very least, if, like you say, if you've never had the experience in day-to-day life, you wouldn't know how you would react.
Mm.
I mean, if I literally was outside my front door now naked, I'd probably be like, what's going on? I would be like more like, what
You just,
the hell
yeah.
is going on? I would
Well,
be like
who
less
knows?
concerned. I'd be like, I'm gonna get in my house. Why? What am I losing my mind? Am I like, I would be more I would be more like concerned and confused rather than this. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so frightened. I'm like, so yeah. If you don't have an experience that you can link into, you don't know how you would react. So that's why it more feels like it's code. It
Mm.
more feels like it's some bizarre, yeah, switch that is in there that can be flicked on for people. Or, like another great fear a lot of people have is speaking in public, right? So that's like a high fear that people have. And that can come in a lot of people's dreams. And again, it's like, there they are, they're standing in the front of the lecture and there's all the people there. And then all of a sudden they get terrified, right? And again, that could be just code. That could be
Mm.
just a code that gets flipped on, particularly in the evening, because it's not happening in their day-to-day life. These
Yeah.
people are avoiding it. So it's not occurring, but it will occur in their dreams. So again, why is it occurring? Is it something related to our day-to-day existence that, as psychologists would say, is trying to appear in your dreams and get you to work through? Or is it being something external to us that is actually manipulating our dream state and using this, yeah, as like a screen or a cover? Because that's something you hear about with the archons or whatever you want to call them, these alien beings that influence us, is they use screen covers. They will create specific scenes. They will create specific images. They will create, whether to make you feel comfortable or scare you or change you or manipulate you. They're constantly, this is where they're good at. They don't create, but they can manifest what's, you might say, is in our minds already. They can scan what's in here, see what's there, and then pull that out themselves and project it. But they couldn't create, if it's not in here, they can't create it.
Yeah.
So it's also this reminder of like, we're constantly being force projected things from our own mind to draw our attention to. And then how much does that happen during our day? How much, if it happens at night, how much happens during our day-to-day existence of this same phenomenon?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's a very dark city, isn't it? It's like this, because I mean, it's very dark city. I'm going to have to watch that again with some different eyes, I think, because that's all about, the dream state, right? People go to sleep, and but in that they manipulate the physical reality, right? As we know, all these stories are sort of inverted, right, or flipped around. So is that trying to tell us it's the opposite, right? They're playing with the dream state to build the physical state they want, and it's just the whole thing that there's just no focus on this time, right? There's this 8 hours, a third of our lives, right? So if you live to 100 years, that's 33 years on average of your life. So it's a big chunk, but there's nothing given to it, no research and all this kind of stuff. So it's definitely something that's being hidden. And I just, it's very interesting that it's clearly the most creative state that we get in. So you would think that's maybe where we're supposed to create. I'm like, I'm just stuck on that idea. I think that's big. I mean, I was talking with Kelly, and she wants to see it, like her big plan is to see if we can get a group of people together and do like an event in the astral realm. Are things like this possible, right? Because we were sort of talking about censorship. You're not allowed to sort of talk about what you want, but is there a way that you can get together in the dream state, which is just another state, but we just don't know how to control it? And can we do that and talk and then get ideas and go? I mean, wouldn't that be interesting?
I know a medicine man I know once. He told me that he didn't have to worry about phoning a close friend of his that lived in Europe that he had met on some European tour or something, because he would just go to a tree, he would talk to the tree and ask it to, in a sense, send his message to a tree close to where the other person lives. And then the person would get the message when they walked near that tree. It would like, and I mean, I can't verify it, but he's never lied to me before. And like, literally, that's how he would send messages to a friend in another place of the world. He would do it through trees.
A trunk
And I
roll,
don't doubt that that's probably true.
a literal trunk roll.
Yeah.
Right,
So
yeah.
we have, I guess, I think in a sense, that's why we took to the internet so quickly. Humans took to the internet instantaneously, that this idea of instantaneous communication, instantaneous knowledge, instantaneous or nothing knowledge, information, because I think that's the framework of our world. That actually there is a natural internet, there is a natural information pool right here. Just over the last several hundred years, we've been disconnected from it, from the natural one, from the one that exists. But we've all felt it, and we've all maybe tapped into it at some point. So once, from the powers that run this place, oh, here's this connecting device. Everybody knows. Yeah, of course. We all know it. It's in our genetic system.
Yeah.
But and as this one's come out, of course, we've turned off the other one even more. So whatever connections we did have to the natural one, we turned that off to trust this one. So like you say, look, I'm just going back to what the ideas you were talking about. It's almost, by your talk with her, it's like almost trying to restart or reconnect back into the natural internet that exists before this one. That's kind of, I think, the theory that you guys are working on.
Well, I mean, a good question is, why do we have this concept of telepathy if it doesn't exist? Why do we, if no one had ever done that, then why do we have this? And as a bit, everyone knows what telepathy is, right? So yeah, I mean, clearly they've been cutting down the trees, right? I mean, there's definitely an attack there. So, and we know that, trees, we're starting to learn, have these big sort of intricate root systems that interact with each other. A lot like the mycelium, the mushrooms, and of course, Avatar, right? The movie. Again, a bit more truth in movies, right? Where they literally plug into the trees and get information. And there's a lot of people that say, trees are antennas as well. So is that what they are, right? Antennas. And again, this is why, because we're seeing it now with like, the VR, right? Mark Zuckerberg, trying to get everyone into this false reality that, with goggles on and sort of live this false world and ignore the natural world. So there's definitely this, which is, whatever you want to call it, the matrix, the overlay, the program that's been put over the top. They're clearly trying to get us more and more into a position where they control the surroundings, right? They, whatever you want to call it, the simulation, the cage, because if we're out in nature, in the natural where we're supposed to be, then clearly it looks like we've got everything we need, right? I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? If that was, because we do, I don't know, with history, right? There's some interesting stuff around the world that, you find it in one place, and then you find it across the other side, the exact same thing. And there is this, obviously there was a lot of travel we don't know about, but, how did information spread so quickly? Because it seems to be in a shorter time frame, right? So is that because, we could just do that kind of stuff? Because that's what everyone's talking about coming back, right? This is when you talk to people about, the new earth and all this, and, great awakening or whatever sort of label you want to put on it. That's it, right? It's all, there'll be telepathy, there'll be free energy, there'll be all this stuff. But I think that's all there in the natural world, right? Water's got current, the water's free energy. So it's,
maybe we should try an experiment, Cambell, you and I, because we do have a fairly good connection between us. It's very obvious. We flow very easily with our thoughts. So maybe a day or two before we do our next one of these, because we're about 2 or 3 weeks or so, and we do our conversations. How about we set up a specific time together? No one else will know. It'll just be you and I. And at that exact time, we both try to connect, and maybe we'll get like a theme or an idea or a place or something. We just take 10 or 15 minutes. We see what happens. We write down our experience. We don't share it with each other at first. We wait till we come on here, and then we'll share them together with all of you, and we'll see how close or how connected that might have been as an experiment to see, is this something that maybe is more than we even think it is. Because I would be surprised if whatever happens there is completely different. I would think there might be something quite similar in what we are experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, let's definitely do that. And yeah, that's what I was talking about. These are the kind of things that we don't know that we sort of need to look into, right? You know, there's probably a lot of answers in the dream state because, you know, like I said a few times before, there's no rules. You can kind of do whatever you want there, right? You know, and so if you could lucid dream like every night, like if dreaming was literally, you know, you close your eyes and you sort of open a door and you go into your, you know, imagination room and you just start creating or whatever, you know, imagine what you could do. Imagine what the answers you could get. It would just be on a different level, wouldn't it? But to start that, I mean, I guess we need to find out what this realm is, right? Like, yeah, like if we put intention out, what are we going to get? You know, can we, you know, meet up or whatever? You know, that's another thing. You know, can we meet up in dreams? Because clearly, you know, a lot of people can lucid dream. You know, we have lucid dreamers, and then we have this
I can say
other.
yes because I've done it.
You've done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people have done it. You have done it. Wow. So I mean, so what does that tell you, right? So this is two, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? The spirit, the soul that know each other, that have decided to go and connect in a different world. So clearly at a soul level, we know how to navigate that world. Right?
No.
How do you meet up? Is it
And
just
but it's interesting to sort of to try to do more of these tests and for others to try tests, you know,
yeah.
for others to, because there's, you know, lots of people who are watching us right now, and you probably got somebody you could try something similar with yourself and just see what kind of connection can be made. I know when I've done it in the past, it was at the beginning anyway, it was important that both people were doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it was like 10 o'clock on Friday, it was both people 10 o'clock on Friday. If it was a gap, if it was even like an hour, one person, it just didn't work the same. It didn't, it was like something about being at the exact same time. So at the same moment,
Same now. Yeah.
that's when the connection point seemed to be better. Yeah.
Mm.
So if someone else is if you're going to try it as well, that seemed at least in my past to be a helpful part of it, that you can't just say, let's just do it on Thursday. No, it's Thursday and you arrange your time around it. Yeah.
Mm. So did you sort of like meditate or whatever, or you know, put intention before you went? Or do you just kind of make an agreement?
It's been a long time, so like years since I've done this. So it's been like,
it's been
like 10 years since I've done this, but
yeah. Because I mean, I would think it would just be intention, right? Because it's clearly it's the realm of imagination. So I think you would just have to imagine it.
Yeah, I think at the beginning you just kind of, I think the way I used to do it, it was kind of similar to how I would dream journey. Like if I was doing a dream journey to get information for somebody or help for somebody in a problem, I first had to first I would try to get something into a natural state. So I was out of the human world. And then I needed to see them in my inner consciousness. I needed to like visualize them, in a sense, the feeling of they're there, or you might just say I'm connecting to their energy. I don't know how you want to pronounce it, but that at least seemed to open the doorway, that if I couldn't in a sense get an image of them, if that was a difficult thing, then it didn't work very well. If I was just going with just simply a feeling, although it would always come back very generic. But if I could get that image of the person and kind of see them, then what I would come back and share always seemed to be of more value. So there's something about that. There's something about you're kind of manifesting them in your dream state prior.
Kind of
You're manifesting their image.
Like tuning into their frequency.
Somehow.
It's like all this quantum healing stuff, like remote healing that there is everywhere at the moment, where they're using like Rife machines and frequency generators and they sort of get like your toenails or something. So they've got your frequency, right? Your DNA frequency. And then they can, the concept is they can just send healing to you wherever you are, because it's, and then when I thought of that, I thought of the word, you know, universe, right? The one song, right? For all different frequencies, we're the one song, right? All the different frequencies make up the song. So that's interesting. It just sort of, it's another step to show that we're, yeah, I mean, clearly we're not just physical, but yeah, so if we can focus in on people's frequency, then yeah, maybe we can attract it, you know, in whatever state, right? Because that's what people are trying all the time to do in the physical world. And again, back to the question, is that the wrong state to be doing it in? Is it do it in the dream state and then get out in the physical state, live your life, expect it to happen, and then badoom? And is anyone doing this and not telling us? That's the big question, right?
Some are probably.
No doubt.
Certainly. I would assume that medicine people have been doing it for generations. Primitive medicine people have been doing something in their own way, right? And of course, the whole Australian term is the dream time, right? That's a huge, that's the word that's used, which is connecting different realms and dimensions at the same time through a sort of altered state of consciousness. And I talked about this idea in my last video just a couple of days ago, which was this idea of how hard it is for people today to, people have lost all their friends, they've lost their family because you don't believe what everyone else believes. So you've kind of just been left alone. And that's really, it's actually a frequency thing is what it is. It's not so much your belief, it's your belief and your feelings, and has created a different frequency. And now it's different than everybody was around. There used to be a connected frequency, and now it's different. And now that it's different, it's like two magnetic poles that are rejecting each other. You can't create those friendships and those connections anymore, because literally on a frequency level, it's not the same. So taking that back to this idea, then, okay, if somebody's in that place and I've lost all my friends, and I would really like to have some connections again. Well, first is to understand it's a frequency issue. It's not a you personally issue. It's your frequency is, or it stayed the same. Everyone else has changed. Firstly, I guess it's a good thing. And then secondly, like you say, it's maybe the beginning of, if you're going to reconnect with others, it starts in the dream state. It's actually sending out your frequency in the world when you're dreaming or when you're going to sleep, to say, you know, I'm ready to start having these conversations with people who think like me. And I don't want to, it's not like I'm trying to do it in the material. I'm doing it first in my dreams, and then seeing what comes back in your material world of who you now all of a sudden surprisingly bump into that thinks the way you do, and all of a sudden a friendship has started. That's also an interesting twist.
And that would be
recreating friendships.
Yeah, that's why it'd be really good to, you know, to monitor, people's lives and their dreams and what actually happens, because, you know, all the time, right, people just out of the blue, right? You just meet these people out of the blue who become these, you know, good friends or influential people in your life, right? In your lives. And it always kind of happens that way, right? It's not that often that the people that you grow up with and are surrounded with, and you know, that circle, that's not very often that they become the influences of our lives, right? It's always just these random people that just appear from God knows where, right? So is that because in the dream state that we're both seeking out similar frequencies, and that's when we find them connect. So in the physical world, we've already got that connection, right? Like the magnets, we get sort of drawn together. I mean, that's good.
Isn't it interesting? Because then we take a bit more control of it. It's not just, then it's now no longer just freak chance. Okay, the two frequencies matched up when we were at the same coffee shop, and great, you know, but is there a way then to project that idea of like, okay, this is my frequency, this is where I am, and I'm ready and open to actually connect with others who think the way I do and connect the way I do, and want to share the way I do. And so that's sort of somehow placed out in our dream state. And then we see what kind of manifestation happens in the outer world. It's kind of backwards to how everyone would think you would do something like this, but it actually might be the rule of the realm of the way it actually works. That it first starts in your, or at least in your intention, right? In this sort of state of imagination, which is a type of partial dream state, and then it becomes materialized, that you can't
Mm.
materialize without something in this non-material state
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. And the concept of getting ready for your dream, like getting prepared, like having some kind of ritual around it. Because again, when you look at, you know, the society they've built around us, you know, not what are most people doing before they go to bed? You know, most people have had a couple of beers, or, you know, they've been watching telly for 2 hours. You know, they're not in a good, you know, they're not in a good mental focus state. And it's literally just like going to bed is, oh, I can't stay up any longer. And they just kind of, you know, waddle off and fall over. You know, there's no thought at all put into it. So, I mean, that may be the start point, right? Is to start your night an hour before you actually go to bed.
Yeah, or at least I would say as a test, we should all take at least, again, let's do it. We should all try. Who wants to try it? We should try a test of like we can start with like 10 minutes. So it's not asking too much of anybody based on their day and what's been going, but just like when you say, I'm ready to go to bed, but okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes first and put myself in, whether it's a calm state, a clear state, a protected state, an intuitive state, I want to be loose. It doesn't matter. Whatever you feel you want to put into your dream time, put those 10 minutes into preparation and see what happens. And then I think it should also be in the other way. You should take at least 5 minutes before you actually get up. Even if the alarm's gone off and you have to turn that off, if you're dealing with an alarm, don't just jump out of bed. Take 5 minutes to kind of just sweep over what's gone on. What's the dream state been like? Is there something in there that I feel like, oh, it's still attached to me, I don't want to take that with me? Or, oh, this was something really good, I want to remember this and I want to work on this later in the day. So it's not asking for a lot. That's like 15 minutes total in a day, like 10 minutes when you go to sleep, 5 minutes after you wake up. But again, we might be surprised to see what actually happens for us if once we do this for a week or two. We might notice something changes.
Definitely, definitely. And if you can have a pad and just sort of write down a few notes in the morning about, you know, what you remember about your dream or any feelings or whatever, and then just read that over before you go to sleep as well, and then do your intention, and just then you'll start to see if there's a link. You know, is this another story, right, that's going on that we're not paying attention to? So, I mean, there you go, guys. So you've got homework. You've got homework this episode. So we expect you all to hand it in on time. Definitely, you know, leave us a comment if you try anything. Let us know the results you got. And yeah, let's sort of have a look at this, because as we know, everything we're taught is backwards and upside down. So if we just turn what we know backwards and upside down, we might be, you know, pretty close to the truth, right? So there you go. I think,
I like that.
Yeah, I think we did quite well again. Didn't know where to start, and ended up with a concept and homework. So, all right, thank you. Yeah, Howdy, that was awesome as always. Thank you everyone for joining us. Of course, if you haven't checked out Howdie's channel, make sure you do. Howdie Talks, the link will be below. And books, of course, all the stuff. We'll leave links below, so go check it out. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another mind-blowing episode of Rules of the Realm. All right, cheers, guys. See ya.